In a small village called Nagai, there was a young girl named Kali. She was kind, cheerful, always helping her parents on the farm and spending the rest of her time with her friends. Kali was a girl full of dreams, but her life changed completely when she fell in love with a young man named Mark. They met secretly by the river, sharing beautiful moments of love and laughter. But then one fateful night, love went too far, and soon, Kali realized she was pregnant. She panicked, but what was even more painful was that Mark refused to take responsibility. In the village, being pregnant out of wedlock was taboo. When the news spread, everyone turned their backs on Kali. No one wanted to see her again. Her parents soon found out, and her father, a respected chief, was deeply disappointed. He could not bear the shame, while her mother cried and begged but could not change the villagers' decision. Finally, they chased her out of the house. Kali left with only a few clothes and a heart full of shame. Wandering around looking for shelter, she was turned away by her friends and was taunted by the boys and girls in the village, calling her names, whispering behind her back, and laughing at her openly. Mothers warned their daughters not to follow in Kali's footsteps, considering her a disgrace to the whole village. But despite the pain and loneliness, she continued walking, because inside her, a small life was growing every day. When she felt exhausted and about to collapse, Kali stopped under a tree, weak and helpless. At that moment, a kind woman named Oisa, who came from a nearby village, discovered her. Oisa had heard rumors of an abandoned young girl, but she did not expect that the person standing before her was that girl. Gently approaching, Oisa gently asked Kali what had happened. As Kali told her story, tears filled Oisa's eyes. Unlike the others, she did not see Kali as a sinner, but simply a young girl who had made a mistake and needed a helping hand. Without hesitation, Oisa invited Kali to live with her mother. Oisa welcomed Kali as her own daughter, taking good care of her, from nutritious meals to a warm place to sleep. She was always by Kali's side throughout her pregnancy. Time passed, and then Kali gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. Oisa's mother burst into happiness, as if she had just welcomed a child of her own. Having experienced the pain of losing her husband and 5 children to the hands of the Grim Reaper, she understood the value of family better than anyone. To her, Kali and the child were a precious gift. She named her baby girl Hope, a name with deep meaning, symbolizing faith in the future despite all the hardships. Having a child to care for, Kali appreciated Oisa's mother's help even more. She continued to raise and support her on her journey to recovery and finding herself. When the right time came, she enrolled Kali in a tailor shop to learn a trade. Kali quickly learned, and soon mastered the art of sewing. Recognizing her potential, Oisa's mother gave her a sewing machine, a gift of faith and hope. With her steady skills and growing confidence, Kali's reputation spread. The dresses she sewed were so unique that people from neighboring villages came to her small shop, bringing fabrics and eagerly awaiting the magical designs she created. As her business grew, Kali realized that her village had become too small for her dreams. She wanted to expand, reach more customers, and so she made a bold decision: move to the city. When she shared her plan with Oisa's mother, she was sad but also extremely proud. She knew that Kali had regained her strength and independence, ready to continue on her new path. Kali left her village with an ambitious heart and a mindset on success. Before leaving, she handed her daughter over to Mama Oisa, took all her savings, and promised to come back for them once she had settled in the city. Carrying the hope of a bright future, she set off, leaving Hope in the loving arms of Mama Oisa. Kali's talent quickly propelled her to the top. Her dresses became the talk of the town. Before long, she was mingling with the upper class, owning luxury stores, wearing gorgeous clothes, driving expensive cars, and living in a magnificent mansion. Her fame spread far and wide, and she caught the eye of a wealthy businessman who offered her hand in marriage. As time passed, her old life faded along with the promises. Kali began to worry that if people knew about her past, about hope, about the poor village of Nagai, everything she had built might collapse. This fear drove her to bury the memories of her daughter in Oisa, living as if the past had never existed. Meanwhile, back in the village, Oisa continued to raise Hope with all her love. But tragedy struck when Hope fell seriously ill. She sold everything she had to pay for her daughter's treatment, but it was still not enough. The mother's heart refused to give up, so she made a difficult decision. She set out for the city, hoping to find Kali and ask for her help. The journey took several days, but Oisa's mother finally arrived in the city. Surprisingly, it didn't take her long to find Kali. Her name was everywhere, and the fashion stores were packed with customers admiring her talent. With a glimmer of hope, Oisa's mother entered one of those gorgeous stores. Before her eyes was a world of dazzling luxury. Kali was standing there, dressed in a gorgeous dress, holding a glass of wine, laughing and chatting happily with high-class customers. Oisa's mother's heart trembled, and she called Kali's name in a choked voice. But when Kali turned around and saw her, the smile on her lips disappeared. Her cold gaze swept over Oisa's mother, then quickly glanced at the luxurious customers who were curiously watching. And then, her voice rang out, cold as ice. "Do I know you?" At that moment, Oisa's mother's heart broke. Mama Oisa, the woman who had taken Kali in, cared for her and her daughter like her own flesh and blood, looked straight into Kali's eyes, her voice trembling. "Daughter, this is Hope, your daughter." But Kali immediately shook her head, her eyes flashing with a cold, unfamiliar light. "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have a child." Her voice was decisive, without any hesitation. Before Mama Oisa could say another word, Kali signaled to the security guard. The incident stunned everyone in the store. The two guards quickly approached, standing on either side of Mama Oisa, waiting for orders. "Take her out," Kali ordered, her eyes devoid of any emotion. Mama Oisa panicked. She hugged Hope tightly, begging Kali to look at the child once, to remember what she had promised. But Kali was unmoved. She looked at the woman who had once been her benefactor with icy eyes, completely denying everything about the past. "She was just a beggar who wanted to take advantage of me," she declared bluntly. Two guards dragged Mama Oisa out of the store despite her cries and pleas. When she tried to return, they even called the police to chase her away. That day, Mama Oisa's cries echoed throughout the street, but no one listened. Kali had climbed to the pinnacle of fame, but along the way, she had lost her heart. At night, Mama Oisa sat on the steps of an old building, holding Hope, who was shivering with fever, tightly in her arms. Her face was etched with pain and despair. The child she had sacrificed everything for, the one she had considered her own, had now cruelly turned her back on her. But as she looked down at Hope, the innocent girl, the victim of a forgotten promise, she knew that her journey had never been in vain. In her arms was a child who deserved all the love in the world. As for Kali, she continued to rise in the fashion world, far from the past, far from the people who loved her the most. While Mama Oisa quietly returned to the village with a faint glimmer of hope, time passed. Kali continued to rise to the top of fame. Her fashion empire expanded throughout the country, her name echoed in the upper class. She married a wealthy businessman, lived in a luxurious mansion, containing everything anyone could dream of. She was invited to the biggest parties, organized the most splendid fashion events. From the outside, Kali seemed to have it all: wealth, power, fame. But behind that glitz, a dark shadow always haunted her. The more successful she became, the more empty she felt. Every time she looked in the mirror, she no longer saw the image of a strong, ambitious girl, but only a stranger, cold and soulless. At night, she tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Memories of Mama Oisa kept coming back, her wounded eyes as she was dragged out of the store, Hope's thin arms wrapped tightly around her, her face small and pale from illness. Kali tried to push the images away, but they kept coming back, more vividly. One evening, at a high-class event, amid laughter and sparkling glasses of wine, Kali overheard a group of people talking about a promising young designer. A girl with a unique, fresh fashion style that made everyone want to wear her designs. Kali was an ambitious and competitive woman. She never accepted being second to anyone in the fashion world. So when she heard about a young designer taking the industry by storm, she couldn't help but be curious. Determined to find out who her new rival was, Kali quickly arranged a meeting with a designer named Hope. When Hope entered the office, Kali saw herself as she had been years ago. A tall, graceful, beautiful, and confident young woman. But what shocked her most were Hope's eyes. They were so familiar. They were the eyes she had seen on the face of the sickly, feverish child in Mama Oisa's arms. Kali's chest tightened for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure, telling herself that it was just a coincidence. Hope, on the other hand, recognized Kali immediately. She had heard of the wealthy women Mama Oisa had cared for, only to abandon them in pursuit of fame. But Hope's face showed no emotion. She maintained a polite demeanor, introducing herself and presenting her designs professionally. The meeting went smoothly. Kali, impressed by Hope's talent, offered her a lucrative contract to work for his brand. But Hope declined. She gently but firmly stated that she wanted to make a name for herself, not stand in someone else's shadow. Kali was stunned. No one had rejected her. No one had dared to reject her, but Hope had done it. After the meeting, Kali tried to put all thoughts of Hope aside, but she couldn't deny one fact: Hope's reputation was growing. The young girl's bold, fresh, and vibrant designs quickly took over the market, attracting the younger generation and making Kali's creations obsolete. Although she tried everything, from copying Hope's style to discounting her products, Kali couldn't stop the decline of the fashion empire she had worked so hard to build. Her customers left one by one, looking to Hope as the new icon of the times. Unable to bear this failure, Kali decided to hire a private investigator to investigate Hope. When she held the report on the young girl's background in her hand, her heart stopped beating. Hope is the daughter she abandoned years ago. She was raised by Mama Oisa, protected by love, but also had to witness the sacrifices and pain she endured for her. Kali reads about how Mama Oisa devoted her whole life to caring for Hope, even sacrificing her own health. She spent all her remaining money on Hope's education and eventually died poor and sick. For the first time in her life, Kali feels the full weight of her mistakes. Fame, money, luxury, all became meaningless. What was truly important, she had lost with her own hands. Determined to make amends, Kali seeks out Mama Oisa, only to receive news that she had passed away a year ago. Regret chokes her heart. She was too blind, too selfish to realize the treasure she had, until she lost it forever. Kali tried to contact Hope, sending letters, flowers, even personally coming to her studio to apologize. But each time, Hope refused to meet. To Hope, the woman who had heartlessly abandoned her and turned her back on Mama Oisa did not deserve forgiveness. Hope had witnessed the suffering that Mama Oisa had to endure, and that was her greatest motivation to rise up. She wanted to succeed, not for revenge, but to give Mama Oisa a better life. But fate was too cruel, taking away the mother she loved before she could do that. Now, she no longer wanted reconciliation. No matter how much Kali regretted it, she could not change the past. The torment began to eat away at Kali. She lost her passion for her work. Her fashion empire gradually collapsed while Hope's reputation grew further and further. Her husband, who married her for fame and fortune, grew increasingly distant and eventually left her for a younger woman. Kali, once a symbol of success, was now a lonely shadow in the world of luxury she once aspired to. The people who once surrounded Kali because of her fame and success drifted away. She was finally left alone in her large mansion, a place filled with memories of what she had and what she had thrown away. Years later, when she was old and lonely, Kali decided to go to a Hope fashion show. She didn't expect much, just to catch a glimpse of her daughter, just once. She sat quietly in the corner, watching Hope as she took the stage. The crowd erupted in applause, and Hope shone brightly, with a genuine smile and passionate eyes. She was the embodiment of all that was beautiful that Mama Oisa had given her. Kali felt a sweet pride rise within her. Hope had become everything she could have ever dreamed of. After the show, Kali tried to approach Hope one last time. She hoped that time would ease all the pain, that her daughter would pity her and perhaps forgive her. But when Hope saw Kali, she just stood there, her eyes calm and distant. Her voice was quiet but firm. "Madam Kali, I have nothing against you. And I don't need you to feel guilty about anything. I made a name for myself, just like you did. But I will not forget Mama Oisa, who loved me, cared for me. She was the only mother I ever had and ever needed. Please, never appear before me again." With that, Hope turned and walked away, leaving Kali standing there, heartbroken, remorseful, but helpless. Kali returned to her empty house. Echoes of the past, memories and mistakes surrounded her. All the wealth and fame she had pursued now seemed meaningless. She realized that no amount of money or success could fill the void she had created with her own indifference. Every night, she faced the choices she had made, the losses that could never be undone. For those who are listening to this story, remember, our choices always have consequences. Don't let betrayal make you lose the most precious things in life. Cherish those who have been with you in your darkest moments. If this story touched your heart, please share the lessons you learned. Thank you for watching. If you are a returning member, thank you for your support. And if you are new here, you are especially welcome. Remember to like, share and subscribe to continue accompanying us. See you in the next stories.